However, you do see the extra lip that we have, and this is more than enough. So now what we have to do is actually trim this lip off. Before that, we have this extra long piece, so we're going to get over to the miter saw, cut this off so that that's flush. Then when we come over here, we'll be able to flush trim. If we didn't cut this off, I'm going to show you what the problem would be. First, we have to raise our router. We don't really need a fence right here because the bearing is our fence. In other words, with a flush trim bit, this is our piece that we're not trimming. This is the piece that we are. The bearing rides on the piece that we're not trimming, and the cutter cuts the piece that we want to trim. So that bearing needs to be up high enough to actually ride on the piece we do not want to trim. The wood, however, we want enough of the cutter to cut the entire piece of wood that we want to trim. Sometimes you find that your flush trim bit isn't long enough. In this case, it's more than long enough. So we're going to tighten up the wing nut that's underneath the router table. And I could slide this fence over just for safety's sake to the back side of this bearing, or halfway up on the bearing, or try to make it so that it's perfectly flush with the top here. In other words, they come all the way up. However, if you got much overhang, you need the fence back a ways. The fence is only going to keep you from tilting the top. When we have a lot of overhang, just like on our nightstand face frame, we're going to climb cut. In other words, we're going to go backwards first, and then we're going to do a clean pass all the way around. So we might go climb cut backwards first. So we're doing this just the opposite of the way we should be. And backwards again. Then we'll be able to go the right way and run this. And your hand's going to be right here. And it's going to ride right like that. And you'll be able to come down then. Turn this around. And go all the way around. Okay? But we do have to trim this first, or what could happen, if we went into it right here, we could go all the way through and actually be cutting that off with the flush trim bit, which could wind up being dangerous. Over here, set it against the fence, pull the saw blade down, and we actually have to use it kind of like a slider, because the inside of the teeth are going to hit this inside board here, and pull it down to that. Get a nice good grip, pull it in and make sure everything's okay. And then we're just going to use it like a chop saw and go straight down. Okay? What that does is it turns it off flush with the other side. This next one is actually a left-handed cut. So I have to go to the left-hand side of the table and do the same thing. You won't be able to see it on the camera right now. And you can see it almost hit right there, just barely, but that would sand right out, and it's about as flush as you can get. Now we can go back to our router table and actually do our flush trimming. Okay, right now we don't have exhaust hooked up to our router table, and someday we will. I've moved the fence forward, but you can see the bearing is still sticking out. So what we're going to do is come in at an angle here, and then bring it into the flush trim bit towards the bearing, and make our cut, and then go this way, and this way. However, remember, we had to do our climb cut first, so I don't want any of my students doing the climb cutting on a tabletop like this. I would prefer to do that for you, and then you can do the final flush trim once I have especially if you have a lot of overhang. If you don't have a lot of overhang like this one, it's just a 32nd or a 16th, you won't have to back cut. So see me before you come over here and get this all set up. Okay, so I'm going to back cut first, or climb cut, as soon as I get my router plugged in. Alright, and this is a variable speed router, so I can actually change the speed. And I have to turn it on as well. Okay, in this next part, I started to do some climb cutting, and my students will not be required to do this. You'll notice if you look down at the table where the wood is, you'll see a slight angle. You actually want that bottom piece of trim to be completely flat on the table when you do this. And I'm holding the top a little bit differently than I do when I flush trim the normal direction, because that bit is like a spinning tire, and you'll try to take your wood very quickly away from you, so you have to hold on to it pretty good. When we go back to the normal video here, you'll have the regular sound and see the way I hold it at that time. But just be very careful if you do have to climb cut. You never want more than a 1/16 of overhang on your top trim. Okay, so I hope this helps. Thank you. Router bit that's running and spinning, don't ever take your hand and wipe your sawdust away. Turn the router completely off, wait till it stops spinning, then you can brush your sawdust away. Otherwise, just take your mouth and blow the sawdust off the table while it's running. That's the only safe way to do it while that blade is still turning. Okay, now we can go the correct way, which you will be doing. And then we'll actually have to put a decorative edge on this after we're done. We'll change the bit out or go to a different router table, and the counterclockwise will put down when we put the decorative edge on. So right now, let's do some flush trimming. My right hand is up high on the wood. I'm trying to keep it straight. I can keep it straight by holding it to the fence back here at an angle. Then as I come into the bit, I can then use this side of the fence to help keep it straight and keep it tight to the bit. The front hand, or the left hand, the fingers should never wrap around the front side for obvious reasons. There's a ledge here. Get it back a ways, press down real hard. You're not really putting much pressure against that bearing at all as you do this cut, and you'll be safe. But make sure this right hand doesn't get down here, or it will be in pretty bad danger. Okay. Do the decorative edge. We're back at one of the Freud routers,